What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Another edition of the First and Orange podcast. Parker Gabriel here, Ryan McFadden over there. It's Thursday morning. We're recording this, Ryan, week 2. It's going to be like week 14 before we know it. Obviously, Broncos 0-1, loss on Sunday, 26-20 at Seattle. I don't want to dwell too long on that since we're already steaming towards the next one, but let's do this, Ryan. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, what you thought of Bo Nix on Sunday, and then, sort of like what we heard from him yesterday, and just kind of give your impression on where do you think Bo is? Just one game, first game as a rookie, obviously had some struggles. What are you sort of looking for? Where do you think he's at now, going into start number 2 on Sunday against Pittsburgh here in Denver?
I think one thing going throughout the whole offseason program, training camp, it was always talked about from the team, coaches, about his experience, maturity, 61 career college starts, all that good stuff. But like Sunday clearly showed that this is not the SEC or the Pac-12 anymore. This is the NFL, and he looked like a rookie. You look at some of the guys across the league, like Caleb Williams. He's another guy that kind of had those growing pains as a rookie. Bo Nix had his own. From when you looked at his accuracy, there was a lot of balls on Sunday where he was off target with his some of the guys on the field. He had the 2 picks, both of them were ill-advised, throwing in double coverage, triple coverage. He just, and kind of like his footwork mechanics were kind of off a little bit. I was impressed about the way his mobility. I thought that stood out a lot. I think the Broncos could use that a lot this year. Even the head coach Mike Tomlin told reporters in Pittsburgh how he was surprised about that as well. So that could be perhaps a secret weapon for him going into this year. But yeah, he looked like a rookie going to his in his first ever NFL game. And they are coming from Wednesday when he spoke to the reporters. He was very optimistic. He looked at the 2 scoring drives against Seattle where he threw that back shoulder throw to Josh Reynolds to set up the 45-yard field goal from Will Lutz. And he also talked about about that drive that it led to the rushing touchdown. So those are positives right there in terms of how he still was able to keep the team in the game and keep it. And if they did get the ball back, they would have had a chance to perhaps win the game. So there are positives to take away from it. It's not something where it's like, oh man, this is the worst pick already. Like it's just one game. And we've seen him in training camp. We've seen it in preseason. We saw a glimpse of it against Seattle. There are positives to look forward to, and you see the team is rallied behind him. They got his back, and it'll be interesting to see. This is the NFL, so it's like if you expected him to go in there setting the world on fire, and I think you're crazy. Like someone mentioned to me, like C.J. Stroud might be an anomaly for a lot of when you look for in terms of rookie years. So we'll see how he progresses and if he could clean up the mistakes. But yeah, it wasn't the best performance, but you can tell the team has taken the positives from it moving forward to week 2.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I thought it was interesting. Like we've all been sort of just like we've watched Bo now the last maybe like 4 or 5 months since the draft, rookie mini camp, OTAs, training camp, mini camp, training camp, now into the season. And, the only time I think that I can remember, Ryan, where you really were like, man, that was pretty rough, was the first day of training camp when there were pads on. And it was like, that was, it was a big jump, right? First time with NFL rushers, even if they're not hitting you, around you, playing defense, hitting, being physical, all that. And so like when as we were watching in Seattle on Sunday, I thought, man, this sort of looks like that first day of pads in training camp, just a little bit of the deer in the headlights type of situation. But I think, and Sean Payton and players have really gone to bat for Bo. And if I was in that position, that's what I would do too. And I also think that like they're certainly, Sean made several points about Bo's performance that I think track. One of them being that he didn't wilt, right? Like he kept competing, he kept playing. Obviously, he dropped back a ton of times, 49 times. Don't think that's what you probably want week in and week out with a rookie quarterback, obviously, but he kept playing, and there definitely is something to that. He didn't seem discouraged after the game or so far this week. And so that's really like, I think that's what you'd expect, but it's also like, okay, check the box. He handled it fine. And, now you're moving on to number 2. I think the thing is, like what will be interesting to see, this is always part of the thing in the NFL, is like I thought he played rushed at times, but he needs to play a little bit quicker. And that sounds sort of like like that's not possible or that's in conflict. But he just was kind of sped up. And at the same time, there was quite a few where it's like if he throws it just you know, a half beat quicker, or if he's a little bit more confident in what he's looking at, that will not solve all of the issues, but that would certainly solve some of them, especially in the underneath game where it's all about timing and rhythm. So it's going to be, obviously it's a big test. They start the season here with 4 straight defensive head coaches. There's not even like that many defensive head coaches in the NFL. But the Broncos get 4 of them right out of the gate. Obviously, Mike McDonald last week, Mike Tomlin this week, and then Todd Bowles in Tampa and Robert Saleh with the Jets after that. So it's a gauntlet for a rookie quarterback out of the gate. Pittsburgh, they shut down Atlanta pretty thoroughly last week. So no easy task at home this week, obviously. But like you said, Ryan, I mean, it's going to be super interesting. We're obviously in the middle of the week here. We'll see what the participation report looks like the next 2 days. But, 2 starting offensive linemen being out of practice on Wednesday, not a great start to the week when you're going against a defensive front like this one. Ryan, how much are you watching just, the participation levels of Garrett Bowles and Luke Wattenberg in particular, given, this defensive front for Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I think I'm watching that really closely because when you look back at the game against Seattle, that offensive line in terms of pass protection, they admitted themselves it wasn't great. You allowed 18 pressures, and this is where the money been invested in on offense is your offensive line, and they didn't step up. They didn't step up to the plate. Quinn Miner said it. Sean Payton said it. And when you look back, they didn't. There was times where Bo Nix, like he was running for his life, even though he's only sacked twice, but he didn't have enough time in the pocket to actually settle down and figure out what he wants to do with the ball, and he's just taking off. But yeah, so you saw the struggles against Seattle, and that doesn't help when you don't have 2 starting guys on your offensive line. They're injured, right? They're dealing with injuries right now. So yeah, that's a bit of a concern. We'll see how it plays out throughout the week. Obviously, Sean Payton is not the biggest guy in terms of providing detailed injury updates. But yeah, I'm very looking at that closely because this is a unit that did struggle against week 1, and that only makes it more challenging for Bo and the offense as a whole if you go into the home opener against TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and those guys, and you don't have 2 starting offensive linemen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of funny. We were talking to Adam Troutman, the tight end, in the locker room yesterday, and somebody asked him if he'd ever gone against TJ Watt before, and he said, "Yeah, 2 years ago when I was in New Orleans, we played him." And then he paused and he just said, "He's really good. That's what I learned from that." And so he obviously is one of the best defensive players. And Sean Payton yesterday said, "I'm not one to get into ranking players around the league or anything, but he's like, if you're going to make a list of the best defensive players, obviously, TJ Watt's right up there with the very best." So a big challenge there. Obviously, I mean, one of the ways you handle a guy like that is if you can run the ball, and it's just for Denver, like through 9 carries against Seattle, they were averaging 5.1 on the ground, and it just dried up. They ended up throwing the ball a lot. Sean Payton he didn't get into much about whether they ended up throwing it too much. He was talking about chasing points, which, I mean, at the end they were, but they were pass heavy from the start, really. And so, the mix and how committed, how patient can you be in the run game, I think is critical this week. And obviously now that'll be without Audric Estime, who they put on injured reserve yesterday with an ankle issue. So the rookie's set to miss 4 games. Ryan, it's a Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin game then on Sunday.
Yeah, and you hit a good point. It's just like when you look at the run game, it's kind of difficult. They had some positives.
Yep.
And then as the game progressed, they dropped back to what we saw last year, and that's the issue. Is like, and then also too, you have to wonder is how patient. I don't know what is Sean Payton's patient level with the run game at all. Like if he goes back, like there's 2 carries between Javonte Williams and Jaleel McLaughlin, and they both get like 3 yards, and he just say, "You know what? Screw it. I'm just going to
Yeah.
We're going to pass the ball. We saw that last year too. It's like he doesn't have a ton of patience with his backfield. It's like once there's a negative play or they can't get 5 yards down the field, it's like he just abandons it quickly and starts trying to throw the ball. So yeah, it's like you're going to need, for a rookie quarterback, you're going to need to establish a consistent run game, and whether that's Jaleel and Javonte improving from week one, or it's Sean Payton being more patient with those guys in terms of the play calling. There has to be some way to establish some consistency there, because you don't want to put Bo Nix in a situation where his rookie year, where almost every single game you're relying on his arm to win the game.
Right.
That's 40 to me, like 42 times in his debut. Like that's not good, and that you don't want to put him in those pressure situations where you're welcoming him into the NFL and he already feels like his back is against the wall and he has to throw 50 times a game just to keep his guys in it.
Yeah. And I mean, the numbers really are pretty staggering from week one. I mean, the like you say, 42 pass attempts, was sacked twice, and then all 5 of Bo Nix's runs for 35 yards, which, as you said earlier, Ryan, looked pretty good. All scrambles. So that's 49 dropbacks and 20 rushes. Then on top of that, 2 of the plays that went in the books as rushes were actually laterals where, Bo Nix is throwing it backwards out to the flat. So, I mean, like, you could pretty realistically make the argument that they were at 51 dropbacks and 18. I mean, they handed the ball off 18 times in 69 plays. I mean, that's not going to be a recipe for a game that, you were winning at halftime and you weren't down 2 scores until late in the third quarter. So it's certainly like, it's going to depend on matchup and all of that week to week about whether you're 50-50 or not quite. I mean, there's not a lot of 50-50 teams in the NFL anymore, but it's all, it gets to one of the things, maybe this is a good transition. I mean, it just gets to the sort of complementary football that Sean Payton has talked about all offseason. The best way to help a rookie quarterback is to run the football and play good defense. And it's like, for the first 2 quarters, they played great defense. And for the first quarter and a half, they ran the football well. And then after that, it all sort of went to hell. So on the defensive front, Ryan, this is a Pittsburgh offense that didn't score an offensive touchdown last year, that we think, I mean, like, at this point in the week, it looks like Justin Fields is going to play. They haven't categorically ruled out Russell Wilson yet. Takes a little bit of the stinger out of the game, doesn't it? If it's just back there rather than old number 3.
Oh yeah, that's just like, maybe not from a player standpoint, but like from I think from a fan perspective and how the whole fallout was. I think this was like, to me, is like the way this season. This was probably like their Super Bowl in a sense. Russell Wilson coming back is to me. I thought the interesting story was you had Russell Wilson. This is the guy that Sean Payton said, I cannot win with. I cannot play with. And now you have Bo Nix, and it's like Sean Payton's literally going against the guy that he can look across the field and say, I told you I was right. And that was, to me, that's what I was looking forward to. That game was like, to me, it was like, this was like Sean Payton, I told you so type of game. Like, if Russell Wilson struggled, like, Sean Payton could be walking away smiling, knowing that everyone who like criticized me for benching Russ late in the year did not know what they were talking about, and I knew how to find a quarterback in the draft. So yeah, like the tension, the build up towards the game kind of is different now that Justin Fields is a quarterback, and it's just like that same energy is not there anymore.
Yeah, we would not have made it 13 minutes into this podcast without talking about Russell Wilson had he been like a full participant and healthy and had started last week and all that. I don't never say never. That doesn't. He was a limited participant in practice yesterday. On Wednesday, we'll see what it looks like the rest of the week. Even still, like, I'm sure you saw it made the rounds on the internet, Ryan. He was inactive last week. Russell but was in full pads and standing on the sideline and all that. I guess just, what do you think? I mean, I would have to, like, if he plays, certainly. But even if not, like, is he getting booed when they show him on the video board? Like, that's just a foregone conclusion, right? Like in the stadium on Sunday.
Listen, I was sent to a Nuggets game this year. This is the funniest thing. I was sent to cover a Nuggets game this year, and they did something on the jumbotron during like a timeout or a quarter break where they, like, Michael Porter Jr. Had to say who was his favorite non-basketball athlete.
Sure.
And it popped up on the screen, Russell Wilson. And this was after, obviously,
That was his answer. That was MPJ's answer.
Yeah, his favorite non-football play, his favorite non-basketball player athlete is Russell Wilson. And this was after he got, this was after he got cut and everything. They still did it. And the whole Ball Arena just went crazy and just booed. It was just an image of Russell Wilson sitting, like just an image of an old Nuggets game where Russell Wilson was sitting courtside, and they still booed him. So I can only imagine what they would do, him just warming up or just on the sideline when he's coming out. I'm expecting the boos. And obviously, it's different for the players. They have a different relationship with Russ. But I think from a fan perspective, and given that his arrival to Denver did not meet the expectation they had and did not end the quarterback carousel that this franchise has been through for years, I see why there'll be some animosity from the fan base going into this game.
Yeah. I mean, boos are part of sports. That's it's like, go for it. There's a lot of times players get this question. They're like, I mean, sure, if they do, that's fine, well within their right. It is gonna be interesting. Ryan, I so wanted a situation where, Russell and the Pittsburgh offense got the ball with 2 minutes left, down 5, and needed a touchdown drive to win in the building, just to feel what that, the drama and the angst and all of that, the tension in the building would have felt like. Still holding on slight hope, although just from what people in Pittsburgh have reported and what Mike Tomlin has said this week, we don't think it's going to be like that. Hurts from players yesterday, several of them who, they were like, yeah, I'll say what's up to Russell if I see him. Quinn Miners, I didn't know this about Quinn, but Quinn was like, he was like, not before the game. And it wasn't about Russ. He said, I don't talk to any players from the opposing team before the game ever. I mean, sometimes you see guys in early warmups, they go find somebody and dap them up or catch up if they played together before or whatever. And Quinn said, that throws me out of my focus. Maybe a coach. If I know a coach, I might talk to a coach for a minute before the game, but I never talk to players from the other team before the game. So he said he'd find him after. Adam Troutman said, yeah, if I see him. Cortland Sutton, obviously, Cortland and Russ are tight. Cortland said he's looking forward to seeing him. But then, once the game kicks off, then he said, you just compete and tally it up at the end. So it's going to be, it's still going to be a little bit surreal, I think, to see Russell in the building, just given, like we've said many times, Pittsburgh's paying him the veteran minimum and Denver's paying him, $37.8 million this year. That's just it's a strange visual. It's one that we've really probably never seen in that to that extent in the NFL before. But obviously, it's quite a bit different if he's standing on the sideline with a headset on compared to if he's running Pittsburgh's offense. So, assuming he doesn't play, Ryan, I mean, this offense wasn't particularly good last week with Justin Fields. What for Denver's defense? What do they have to do to be better, to be more like first half last week rather than second half last week?
I think they got to prove in stopping the run. That's the key there. Their offense, Pittsburgh's offense, wasn't that great last week. But Najee Harris, their running back, has rushed for 1,000 plus 1,000 plus rushing yards in the last 3 seasons. So that's something you shouldn't take lightly. And I think that's going to be the key there. I think this is going to be, and also too, Justin Fields, he's not known for his arm talent, but he can take off when he needs to take off. And that's going to be the key there. I think that right there you're going to have to contain the run, try to force Justin Fields to make plays with his arms and have Pat Surtain do what he did with DK Metcalf. What Pat Surtain do with DK Metcalf to George Pickens in terms of shutting him throughout the game. I think the Broncos have a chance I think it's going to be a low-scoring, close game. Yep. But I think if the Broncos want to pull this off, it's going to start with containing a run. Don't let Justin Fields start creating momentum with his legs, and that's going to be the key if they want to pull off a victory.
What's crazy is the Broncos saw Justin Fields last year, obviously in Chicago, and he put together literally the best passing game of his career, and not even particularly close. I just was pulling this up. He's got one 300-yard passing game in his career. Obviously, 3 seasons in Chicago before this year. 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. Only 300-yard game of his career, and by a long shot, he had 335. The next highest was 291. I think he's only got two. He's got 4 touchdown games in his career. That was one of them. And not only that, but he started. I think he was 23 of 23 in the first half before a Hail Mary. And so like it just was preposterous. It was in that stretch, obviously horrible start for the Broncos defense. They turned it around. Russell Wilson came back, helped them win that game to stop from going to 0-4. I think it dropped Chicago to 0-4 actually. Chicago ends up getting the number 1 pick, drafting Caleb Williams. Justin Fields is gone. So is Russell Wilson. And here we are. It's sort of a wild, sequence, but he's got ability. We just haven't seen it consistently. And frankly, Pittsburgh's got George Pickens and then just not a ton else in terms of top flight pass catching talent. And so, it's got, like you said, Ryan, it's got to be the run. I just think that's so fun. Fields, we literally saw him in full on Superman mode last year in Chicago. And then obviously that's not been the player he's been throwing the ball in his career, but he's capable of it. And Denver's seen that up close. So I think you're right. I think low scoring, spot on. In fact, I think it's got the lowest total in terms of a betting line in the NFL this week, 36 or 36.5. So to wrap it up, Ryan, prediction time. What do you think?
I'm going Pittsburgh beats Broncos 17-13. I think this is going to be a game that's going to come down to the special teams and the run game. And I think TJ Watt and company is going to give Bo Nix some problems. I don't know if he's going to throw two interceptions like he did against Seattle, but I think it's going to be a challenging afternoon for him. And I think Pittsburgh is going to sneak away with it just off of relying on the run and making plays on special teams. So I got Pittsburgh winning 17-13.
Yeah, very similar for me. I've got Pittsburgh too. I think Denver is going to find some success as the season goes along. This is a tough stretch to start. And it's not even Seattle and Pittsburgh, they're not the greatest, they're not the best teams in the NFL, but they just match up in ways that I think is a little bit tough on Denver. So I've got Pittsburgh 20-17, same kind of game, low score and run the ball, all of that. And at this point with Denver, you understand there's going to be a learning curve with Bo Nix. It's fine. It's not anything. He shouldn't get, trashed or whatever. None of that. It's just going to be a stretch like that. And I just, until you start to see some of the rhythm come through and all of that, it's just a tall task to put it squarely on the defense and the running game, given, what those units have been over the last couple of years. So close, I'll take Pittsburgh. I wouldn't be surprised if Denver finds a way to win, obviously, in a low scoring, close game like that. But Steelers 20-17. Mike Tomlin is a Wizards, never had a losing season in his career. 0-2 with 2 straight road games on the East Coast after that would be a tough start for the Broncos, but I don't think it would be particularly shocking. Anything else for the good of the cause, Ryan?
No, no, not at all. Just we're gonna see. I'll just say, with Bo Nix, like you said, you just gotta have patience with him. I think that's the key there. This is this is a hard stretch going against 4 straight defensive minded coaches, and he's gonna have rookie pains. We saw it on week 1. We're gonna probably see it on Sunday as well. It's just going to take some time. The same way it took some time for him to find some comfortability during training camp. It's the same thing is going to happen there. So it's too early. It's way too early to jump off the bandwagon. But I do see talent there in Bo Nix.
Yep.
And even Champagne Hansman, it's going to take everyone, not just Bo Nix. It's going to find consistency in the running game, better protection on the O-line. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting season as we move forward.
All right. Well, we'll see how many Russell Wilson jerseys there are converted to Will Lutz jerseys at the stadium on Sunday. For Ryan McFadden, Parker Gabriel, denverpost.com/Broncos for all the latest. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next week.